Today, we are diving deep into the biological blueprint of our feelings. We're going to decode the powerful, invisible forces that actually shape our emotions. And, it all starts with a pretty simple question.
You know that feeling, right? One day you're feeling great, just on top of the world, and the next you're irritable or down, and you have no idea why. It can feel so random, kind of chaotic, and totally out of your control.
Well, here's the validation you might have been looking for. That feeling, it isn't just some psychological quirk. Science actually confirms it has deep physical roots. So no, it's not just in your head, it's in your chemistry.
So our first big idea here is to move past thinking that mood is purely a mental thing. We've got to look at the biological architecture that's holding up everything we feel.
And right at the heart of that architecture, you've got hormones. The best way to think of them is like the body's internal email system, sending out chemical messages that give instructions to, well, pretty much every system, including the one that runs your emotions.
Okay, so how do these messages, these little chemical emails, actually turn into feelings? Well, that brings us to the super important connection between our hormones and our brain. This is where the chemistry of your body meets the wiring of your mind.
So you've really got two key players here. Hormones are the messengers, right? They travel all through the body. But then you have neurotransmitters, things like serotonin and dopamine, and they're the brain's direct mood regulators. Basically, hormones deliver the instructions, telling the neurotransmitters whether to turn the volume up on happiness or maybe down on anxiety.
So let's meet the main characters in this whole story. Now, there are a lot of hormones at play, but there are three that have a huge impact on our day-to-day emotional state.
First up, we've got estrogen, and this one is an absolute powerhouse. It directly influences the production of serotonin. That's our main feel-good chemical. But it also affects dopamine, which drives our motivation, and norepinephrine, which keeps us alert. So it's simple. When estrogen levels are stable, our mood tends to be a whole lot more stable too.
And next we have progesterone, our emotional regulator. When it's in balance, it's great. It helps us feel calm, it lowers anxiety, and it helps us sleep. But when those levels start to fluctuate, it can tip the scales, leaving us feeling irritable and maybe a little emotionally sensitive.
And then there's cortisol. You know this one, the stress hormone. Now, in short bursts, it's actually helpful, but chronic, long-term stress, that kicks off a destructive chain reaction. Cortisol just floods your system, and as it rises, it directly tanks your serotonin activity. This is literally how chronic stress biologically paves the road for anxiety and mood disorders.
Okay, so if these hormones are so incredibly important, when do we feel their effects the most? This brings us to the hormonal journey that plays out over a lifetime, especially for women, where these shifts are, the most dramatic.
And the impact is, well, it's not small. Just look at this number. During perimenopause, as estrogen levels start that slow decline, a woman's risk for depression can shoot up by a staggering 40%. Now, that's not a personal failing. That is a physiological event, and it's rooted in changing brain chemistry.
You can actually map this journey across a few key stages. It all kicks off with that big hormonal surge in puberty. Then it settles into the monthly rhythm of the menstrual cycle. Then you have the massive hormonal flood of pregnancy, followed by a super dramatic postpartum crash, and it all leads up to the final major shift of menopause. Every single stage is a profound change in our internal chemical weather.
And that postpartum period is a really vulnerable time. That sudden, almost overnight drop in hormones after giving birth is directly linked to postpartum depression, which affects a significant 10 to 15% of new mothers. It's just a crystal clear, powerful example of hormones directly shaping our mental health.
So here's the thing. Our biology hasn't really changed in thousands of years, but our environments sure has. So how does our modern lifestyle interact with this super delicate hormonal system? The answer is a lot.
This is exactly where our modern lives can just throw a wrench in the works. Things like constant stress and not getting enough sleep keep those cortisol levels way too high. Ultra-processed diets can mess with the hormones that regulate our mood. It all adds up, It disrupts our natural balance and can really amplify the risk for mood issues.
So how can you start to tell if hormones might be playing a starring role in your mood? Well, this list has some pretty powerful clues. If your mood swings are predictably linked to your cycle, if you noticed big changes after pregnancy, or maybe some new anxiety that just crept in after you turned 35, it's definitely worth considering that biological connection.
All right, we've gone through the chemistry, the life stages, the modern-day challenges, and it's all pointing to one single powerful shift in how we need to look at our own emotional health.
So what is it? What's that one big idea?
the one takeaway that kind of changes everything.
Here it is. Your mood is not some simple thing happening in your head. It's the output of a complex, dynamic system. And understanding this, it doesn't just explain our feelings, it empowers us. It gives us a whole new lens for self-awareness and new ways to take care of our emotional well-being. So the next time your mood feels like a total mystery, maybe ask yourself, what biological clue could I look for first?